We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order.
New world order.
This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
The councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
Live from Fremont Regions 5 and 10, this is Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. Vicky Davis is here as well. It is the 22nd of August, 2020, as we once again document the crisis of our republic, exploring all of the crazy, whacked-out things that are going on all across our country and around the world. And there is no shortage of things to talk about, that's for sure. Certainly, we had the Democratic National Convention taking place this past week. And in the COVID era, the quote-unquote COVID era, during the quote-unquote global pandemic, the global pandemic that doesn't exist, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not saying the virus doesn't exist, but certainly we don't have people dropping dead everywhere. There's, to those that have lost loved ones due to the virus, certainly that is something that is very tragic for them. However, unfortunately, people die every day. And this happens, and we have to deal with the fact that death is a part of life every single day. And if we're living around in fear constantly that we are going to die, then what kind of life is that? But certainly that's what half the country seems to be doing. And the other half is trying to avoid all of the mandates from the half that is running around with fear and very compliantly going along with all the mandates that are being handed down. Trying to live in a free life in our country is more and more of a challenge. But this Democratic National Committee, what I saw of it, Vicky, was a joke. It was an embarrassment to our country, I think, and certainly an embarrassment to television. It was amateurish. Okay? That's what I think. At one time we were called the land of the free and the home of the brave, and now we're running around like Chicken Littles with the sky falling, and we don't think we can survive. That's not to say you do something that's reckless and endangering yourself, but at the same time, when this thing has killed less than 0.1% of the people that it infects, what's the point? What's the point?
Well,
it's so ridiculous.
They're building a society based on fear.
Yes, they're building policy based on fear.
Yeah.
And it's really, I can't help but go back to 9/11. I can't help, because the parallels are perfect. I mean, you go right back to 9/11 and how they used the Al-Qaeda boogeyman. Where are the Al-Qaeda boogeyman, Vicky? Where are they?
They disappeared. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, why don't we have people blowing themselves up here, here in the United States? I mean, not that I'm calling for that, don't get me wrong. But, I mean, that's all we heard about a few years ago. Oh, the boogeyman are going to get you. Oh, Al-Qaeda's going to get you. They're all hiding in your closet and under your bed. Why, they're sabotaging your mama's makeup. Everything that they were going to do to us, I mean, they're coming to get you. And now they're all gone. What happened? Did the Al Qaeda boogeyman? Are they running around hiding in their caves now because they're afraid of the COVID-19? I mean, folks, people need to really wake up and realize how you're being manipulated. You need to realize that these things are all just tools. 9/11, the threat of terrorism, the threat of the bombers, the threat of all of this stuff, it wore off. People got immune to them. You can only cry wolf so many times until people finally become immune to it.
But it seems to work on a lot of people. You know, they're like sheep.
Yeah,
they just do what they're told.
Well, my point is that there had to be a new crisis because the old crisis wasn't getting it anymore. People weren't afraid from their shadow.
Forget, we have the G7 agreed to, as one of the global systems, to build a global emergency management system. So every type of crisis that there is, we will have a dialectic so that they can test out their designed mitigation for the disaster that occurs.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just an endless supply of disasters that can happen.
Yeah, no question about it. But this Democratic National Committee, I don't know, this convention, I don't know how the Republicans are going to be this week coming up. Isn't it this week? I think it's this coming week. I don't know.
Are they doing it the same way?
They're not doing a convention where the people gather into a stadium. I think they are. So it's...
Oh, how 21st century of them.
Yeah, certainly doesn't give anybody... And, we're having a presidential election. We haven't had a debate. We haven't seen these guys lock horns. I really would love to have seen Joe Biden.
Joe Biden's horns are drooping.
Well, and Joe Biden's got all kinds of problems, not the least of which he can't... Well, I wasn't going to do this yet, but I might as well get it out of the way. Joe Biden can't even remember who he is. Let's see. Here it is. Joe Biden spoke. Okay, this was on Tuesday. Joe Biden spoke, and then Joe shows up and gives her a hug. Now, there's so many awkward moments in this thing, too. It's really weird. It's almost like they're overacting at certain times. But anyway, Joe Biden gives his wife a hug, and then he says this.
Great.
Okay.
Love it. How are you?
There's the hug.
Hey, everyone. I'm Joe Biden's husband.
Did you hear that? Did you hear what he said?
Yeah, he said, I'm Joe Biden's husband.
Great. God, love it. How are you? Hey, everyone. I'm Joe Biden's husband.
Oh, Joe Biden's husband.
I'm Joe. No, he said Joe Biden.
Oh, did he? Okay.
You heard him right to begin with. I'm Joe Biden's husband.
Everyone, I'm Joe Biden's husband. As you heard tonight, you can see why she's the love of my life, the rock of our family. She never gives herself much credit, but the truth is, she's the strongest person I know. She's a backbone like a ramrod. She loves fiercely, cares deeply. Nothing stops her when she sets her mind into getting something right. And for all of you out there across the country, just think of your favorite educator who gave you the confidence to believe in yourself. That's the kind of first lady this Jill Biden will be. God love you.
That's kind of weird. All right, yeah, so...
Hey, everyone. I'm Joe Biden's husband. Hey, everyone.
So
I'm Joe Biden's husband.
I'm Joe Biden's husband. Yeah, I mean, the guy that doesn't even know who he is. And now he also has... let's see. Okay, here it is, I think. Yeah, he spoke. He just spoke, and he said if he's elected... Now, see, what's interesting is the Washington Examiner is reporting just yesterday Trump's approval rating surges during Biden's convention. Now, that's interesting, isn't it? You wouldn't, because the whole point of this
Not
convention,
surprising, but it is interesting.
the whole point of the convention is to boost the candidate, to introduce the candidate to the world, and to say, put forth, hey, we're putting our best foot forward. We're going to show you what we have to offer, okay? And of course they offered nothing. They offered nothing but hate toward the incumbent. That's what mainly what I saw. But it was a lot of support for Black Lives Matter and the terrorist groups that we've seen in recent days. There wasn't any condemnation of the violence. Certainly, you would think that there would be some effort to say, hey, look, we don't want burning cities. I just think you could start there. Couldn't you start there and just say that?
Well, you know what? It's almost kind of like the Republicans are writing the script for the Democrats. Don't you think?
Well,
how many people have you ever known that would support the kind of terrorism, burning things in cities, making war on the cops, destroying things? I haven't known anybody, no matter how far right they were in terms of their political views, that kind of thing where you destroy things, it isn't something that anybody that I've ever known would condone.
Yeah, me either. Any normal person. And I got to believe there's a lot of, somewhat normal people in the Democrat camp. I mean, there's got to be some moderate Democrats out there that don't agree with all this stuff.
I think they are probably as alienated from the Democrat Party as a lot of conservatives are from the the Republican Party. Hence the big independent bulge in the middle.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are there may be Democrat, but they look at what the party has become. They don't like Trump. They hate Trump, but they don't like the Democrats have got nothing. They make no offers. I mean, look, this is what we're going to do. This is what we stand for. All they have is what they stand against, which is mainly Orange Man bad. But what's amazing to me is that this Washington Examiner, if it's true, they say that the Rasmussen, I guess they cite Rasmussen, daily average for Trump, which is spread over 3 days, hit 51% this week and stayed there. On the first day of the Democratic National Convention, Trump approval rating was 47%. It rose as the president was taking hits at the virtual convention from former President Barack Obama, 2016 foe Hillary Rodham Clinton, and a host of other prominent Democrats. But it also came as he hit the campaign trail in advance of next week's GOP convention. Well, that could be part of it. However, he's been having those little speeches from time to time anyway. I think people are seeing that that the Democrats have nothing to offer. They don't have any. They don't have any plans. They don't have any values other than hate and destruction. I mean, if I had a political party, and I almost sound like a Republican. I want to make it very clear to anybody who might be just tuning in. I am not a Republican. But I do recognize a party that certainly has left American values behind. They don't have any. We're supposed to be a country of laws. I mean, not dictatorship and iron fist and bringing it down on top of everybody's head, like we're becoming. But I see a total abandonment of any sense of law and order. And this is being pushed. There's no condemnation of any violence anywhere. And why would anybody support that? I mean, unless you're just an absolute outlaw that wants anarchy and chaos. So it's flummoxing. Are you still there?
Yeah. I'm just thinking, listening to you.
Well, we have a lot of interesting things going on right now. We have wildfires out west. We have not one but two. In fact, they said it was some of the largest wildfires, California wildfires that are going on, some of the largest in the state's history. hundreds of miles scorched. It's interesting, too, at the same time that that's going on, we also have not one but two different hurricanes that are barreling down on the country. They're saying
never fear. The emergency managers have it, covered. So.
Yeah. The National Hurricane Center is predicting 2 hurricanes in the Gulf of Mexico on Tuesday. There are only a few times, according to NOAA, that when 2 tropical storms have been in the Gulf at the same time. The most recent example was 1959. Now they're saying that Laura will be hitting northern Leeward Islands on Friday night and Puerto Rico on Saturday. Marco, which is the other one, will bring heavy rain and gusty. So anyways, they're saying that both of these things could potentially hit the United States at the same time. So it's pretty interesting that we can have this incredible devastation. So let's pray for the southern states. So we got that going on. I thought it was kind of funny, too, and I'm kind of jumping around because there's so much going on. It's just hard to keep track of it all. But you've heard of the protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Well, apparently the FBI has a records vault Twitter account. The FBI Records Vault. The FBI Records Vault Twitter account apparently tweeted out a copy of the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion this past week.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that they even have a copy of that in their archive. But anyway, they blamed it on a computer error, and they promptly removed the tweet after people hit the roof about it.
Computer error that accidentally tweets out a document.
I'm wondering if somebody lost their job over that one. But what dawned on me, and maybe this is the paranoid side of me, is that I wonder if the people that retweeted that, because apparently it went viral. A lot of people retweeted it, and something's wrong. People are actually retweeting our account, and then they found out that that's something we don't want to have out there. I'm wondering, I guess if you wanted to be paranoid about it, you could say, well, maybe they just wanted to put that out there to find out to basically log who retweets it, which accounts, and who they belong to.
Well, that would give quite a bit of information about, whoever retweets it. Give you a list of people who are into that sort of reading.
Yeah, and then we have this information. Hillary Clinton gave Ghislaine Maxwell's nephew a very powerful position at the State Department. She gifted a prestigious job in the Obama State Department to the nephew of accused pedophile sex trafficker Ghislaine Maxwell, according to OK Magazine. Apparently that was confirmed also by the Daily Beast. Alexander Gerasi, he's the son of Maxwell's sister, Isabel, went from working on Hillary Clinton's 2008 presidential campaign. See, this is how incestuous these relationships are, no pun intended. You have Ghislaine Maxwell, his, her son, or his, nephew, working on the campaign, the 2008 presidential campaign for Hillary Clinton. But anyway, she then gave him a job at the State Department and working in charge of Bureau of Near Eastern Affairs. He returned to Clinton's 2016 campaign, according to the Daily Beast. So I just wanted to point that out, folks, that all of this stuff going on behind the scenes, you have all of these people working very closely. Obviously, when you're at the State Department, you work closely, and certainly the Secretary of State, you work closely with intelligence. But Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein very closely tied to, it's worse than cloak and dagger operations, Israeli Mossad, and Pedogate. It's just remarkable that, the tangled web involved in all of these things and all these people. And again, where's the Justice Department to investigate Obviously, Ghislaine has been arrested.
What Justice Department?
Yeah.
Do we have a Justice Department?
Yeah, that's the point right there. What else? Oh yeah, here's something. We talked last week about Millie Weaver and her arrest. She's out on bail now. That's the latest. Of course, her ordeal isn't over, and there's been a breach between Alex Jones and, well, really, it's a separation. Alex Jones cut ties with her because he feels her documentary implicates Roger Stone, and he says that Roger Stone can't even run Skype, let alone a network of people that are doing the kinds of computer things that Millie Weaver's documentary, Shadowgate, says that he's doing. So we've learned more information. As a matter of fact, right after we got off the air last week, we started learning information. There was a post on YouTube by Millie Weaver's mother. At first, when I saw it, I didn't think it was real. I thought there was a good possibility that was a fake. But we've since learned that it was, in fact, real. Her mother posted a thing while she was still in jail about what precipitated the whole event. This was a months old, what would you call it, a warrant?
Yeah.
A months old thing where they got
it was a charge that was on the books.
She had called the police. Okay, they had a dispute, and apparently what the dispute was about, from what I've read, is that I guess Millie's mother is a Democrat. She is a leftist, and Millie was, it's hard when you're from one political side of things to have your daughter working for InfoWars. But anyway, she evidently was trying to take pictures or something of the documents Millie had. And anyway, the point is that there was a fight over that, I guess. That's what it was over. And
well, she was also recording conversations.
Yeah, according to what she said in the post, she was recording the dispute that they had. Anyway, Millie took the phone. Evidently, the phone was damaged in I don't know if it was an ensuing scuffle or whatever the case was. And her mother got mad and called the police. And the police came, but ultimately her mother said, she chose to drop charges. Anyway, the bottom line is that so this what was really a minor domestic dispute turned into something that they used down the road.
Was how they behaved when the police arrived, before the police arrived, and then when the police arrived. The brother took the phone out to the woods, and they denied that anything was going on. It was like, they're all a bunch of mental midgets, like 15-year-olds. When your 15-year-old is lying to you because their story is so implausible. They didn't have to do that. All they had to do is to say, yeah, we took the phone away from her. We smashed it because she was recording us.
Well, I hadn't read that they took the phone out to the woods. I don't know where that came from because I hadn't saw that.
Yeah, it was in one of the videos that I watched, and they also had the story that the three of them were telling about the mother, and it just. Now, whether or not the mother does have mental problems or not really doesn't matter.
I'm not even saying that.
If you do things in a guilty way, then, people are going to think you're guilty. But from the scenario with her mother recording things, I think all they had to do was tell the cop that. She was recording us.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know. I'm certainly not saying the mother has mental problems. I don't know her, but the point is that she this is something that was used, and I do believe that the documentary is a very important documentary. That's evident by the fact that some of these companies that they've named have started taking down their pages of their board of directors. I don't know if you saw that, Vicky.
Yeah, I did. I did see that.
I verified that. Those pages that were there before are no longer there. So they're trying to hide who's involved with some of these companies. And so there's some very good information. I'm not saying every jot and tittle in the documentary is accurate or right on the money, but I know that there's enough there that it's disturbed some people. Let's put it that way. So her ordeal is not over. I mean, she's got charges against her that at some point she's going to have to face. I guess they changed the charge from burglary down to robbery or something like that.
I don't even know how they could make that stick.
Yeah, I don't know how they could make it. Obviously, this is political.
They broke her phone.
Obviously, this is political. Yeah, at best, it should be a misdemeanor and nothing else. But even so, once the mother is no longer having a problem with anything, they should go about their way. So why would they bring this up and run with it? Except that it's obviously they were desperate to get something so that they could arrest her. And my understanding was the warrant wasn't even for her.
Right, it was for
her husband, Gavin. The warrant was for her husband, Gavin, and they just arrested her too. So, if nothing else, I think she can turn around and file a lawsuit against that sheriff's department. But anyway, I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead and take a break here, and we'll come back and we'll hit the ground running on the other side. Stay with us, folks. This is Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. Vicky Davis is here, and we're just getting started. Lots more to come. Don't go away.
Where the spooks go to find out what's really going on. This is Govern America.
Welcome back to the broadcast. This is Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. Vicky Davis is here as well. Don't try to call in yet because we don't have the phone bridge up yet. I forgot. There was something I was forgetting. Anyway, we'll get that up as time goes on here. But anyway, the website for the show is governamerica.com. That's governamerica.com. My email address is radio@governamerica.com. Vicky, go ahead and give your information out, please.
Yeah, my website is thetechnocratictyranny.com, and that's my newer website. My older website is channelingreality.com, and my email address is eyeswideoopen @channelingreality.com.
All right,
so
very good.
The Technocratic Tyranny is the newest website.
Yeah, so one of the reasons why I brought up the Millie Weaver thing, I did want to update people since, in case people haven't been following it at all. But with all that going on, I've completely forgot to mention this.
Fox News alert now. The Associated Press is now reporting that a former FBI lawyer will plead guilty to making a false statement in the first criminal case coming from the John Durham probe into the Russia investigation. That former lawyer is Kevin Clinesmith. The Durham probe, of course, looking into the origins of the Russia investigation after the FBI opened that into whether the Trump campaign was coordinated with Russia in the 2016 election. Clinesmith is being charged in federal court in Washington and is expected to plead guilty to one count of making a false statement, according to his attorney. The Durham investigation has caused deep concern among Democrats. They call it a politically charged exercise meant to relitigate an already closed investigation. So, Trace, we're just now getting the breaking details on this as the AP is now reporting that has come from the Durham probe.
Yeah, and you go back to the DOJ report, and this kind of came up where Kevin Clinesmith was accused of tampering with some of the information that was turned in to the FISA court over one of those FISA warrants to, surveil Carter Page. And so that was the whole crux of the deal there. And now they were saying, there could be some criminal indictments coming out of this. Kevin Clinesmith is the first. We do not yet know what the remainder of John Durham's findings are, but we will find that out. And again, Bill Barr said last night, don't expect bombshells today, but there will be information coming out before the election, which I think is key to all this.
The New York Times is saying Clinesmith will admit he changed an email from the CIA that was used in seeking renewed court permission in 2017 for a secret wiretap on the president's campaign advisor, Carter Page.
So we have somebody that has been evidently thrown under the bus, certainly somebody who, I'm not saying he's not guilty, but certainly he's not one of the major players in all of this. So I would be very surprised to see any of the real major players go down.
I would too. I don't expect there might be one or two more prosecutions, but they're not going to do anything about this because it's too politically hot to handle, and our entire government has become a criminal conspiracy.
Yeah, criminal enterprise. Exactly right. So, really, how important was it that we mentioned it? I guess it's noteworthy, so this is why it took a week to get it out there on this show, because honestly, I don't think it's that significant, Vicky.
No, I don't consider it to be very significant. He should have been arrested a long time ago when they found out about it.
Yeah, I agree.
Because everybody knows that when you change a document, a legal document, you're in trouble. And then to take it to a court, to a judge, he should have been in handcuffs about a week and a half after they found out about it.
Now, what is significant is this story about a contractor finding a missile at a Florida airport.
A contractor working at a Florida airport opened a cargo container and found a live missile. The missile was discovered Friday afternoon at Lakeland Linder International Airport, east of Tampa, Florida. It isn't known how the missile arrived at the airport, which is no longer used by the U.S. military. Lakeland Linder is mainly used for private jets. Disposal experts from the U.S. Air Force were called in to remove it. The airport is home to Draken International, which contracts out aircraft to the military for training exercises. The cargo container belonging to Draken International also contained aircraft parts. The firm, which is based at the airport, has links with the U.S. military and owns a fleet of 150 former military aircraft that it contracts out for training exercises. After the discovery, the airport was quickly evacuated, and disposal experts from nearby MacDill Air Force Base were called in to remove the missile, which was live but not armed. It was described as an air-to-air French-made S-530, and it's not used by the U.S. military. After being called by Lakeland, the 6th Air Refueling Wing sent a flatbed truck to transport it to MacDill, where it's currently being stored. Draken released a statement that reads, in part, quote, "The decision was made to evacuate the facility and its surrounding neighbors and contact the proper authorities. Draken takes its role in the community seriously and always wants to ensure it performs safe and reliable operations." End quote. Narrator's note. Why does Draken International own a fleet of 150 former United States military aircraft that it contracts out to train the U.S. Air Force? Seems kind of screwy, doesn't it? 4 headlines with a voice. This is Nancy Morgan-Hart.
So there you go.
Yeah, well, that's really an important story. Actually, the contracting out, selling their fleet and then renting it back to the military is really the big story there.
Yeah, a money scam.
I would say that probably the arrival of that missile is probably a dialectic. Another a type of emergency that they must address. In as far as the transportation system is concerned, and supply chain tracking. Who knows? Maybe they'll be working on a global supply chain for military assets.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't sound like something is working. I don't know exactly.
Nothing is working. Absolutely. I mean, that's like saying the sky.
Yeah, exactly.
The sky seems to be blue today.
Yeah, I guess so. Mr. State the obvious here.
Yeah. Hey, I want to go back to that Millie Weaver story for just 1 second.
Okay.
And say that the most interesting tidbit to me was that her mother is LDS.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
There's something going on with the LDS.
Mormons, the Latter-day Saints.
The Mormon, yeah. And I don't think it involves all of them, although it might. I think it probably has to do with some kind of end times thing. But I thought that was very interesting, and I will be watching for it. And where I've been getting a lot of my information is there are a lot of people, I assume that they're taking classes, training classes or something, on doing crime reporting. And so there are a lot of videos that you can watch and of different people that are doing the story. And how I started following that was with the Lori Daybell Vallow story, the most bizarre criminal conspiracy kind of story you've ever heard. But the reason I started listening to it was because they're being tried in Rexburg, Idaho.
Oh, okay.
And it's also, there is a connection to the LDS Church, or some subset of people in the church. So anyway, it's all very interesting, and if you're into crime, looking at crime and criminals, look for those videos.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wasn't familiar with the case.
Yeah, it's the most bizarre case. It's like this woman, Lori Daybell Vallow. It's like everybody around her dies. She's like a black widow.
Wow. That is interesting. Yeah, people are intrigued with murder mysteries.
Her children. Her children were murdered.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It's just totally bizarre.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to look that up. Anyway, as we continue on, we were talking earlier about the Democratic Convention. One of the things that came out of the convention, of course, was Andrew Cuomo's speech, which is, here's a little clip from it.
Today's Monday, day 170. New Yorkers were ground zero for the COVID virus and have gone from one of the highest infection rates on the globe to one of the lowest. We climbed the impossible mountain, and right now we are on the other side. We did it with the kindness and assistance of so many. New Yorkers want to thank everyone who came to our aid, 30,000 Americans who volunteered to come here to help in our hour of need. Your love gave us the strength to carry on. We went through hell, but we have...
Oh, yeah, I thought he was going to break into a country song there when he started down that road.
But we have learned much. We know that our problems go beyond the COVID virus. COVID is the symptom, not the illness. Our nation is in crisis. And in many ways, COVID is just a metaphor. A virus attacks when the body is weak and when it cannot defend itself. Over these past few years, America's body politic has been weakened. The divisions have been growing deeper. The anti-Semitism, the anti-Latino, the anti-immigrant fervor, the racism in Charlottesville, where the KKK didn't even bother to wear their hoods.
Where's the mention of the Black Lives Matter and the burning buildings?
And in Minnesota, where the life was squeezed from Mr. Floyd. Only a strong body can fight off the virus, and America's divisions weakened it. Donald Trump didn't create the initial division.
Oh, really?
The division created Trump.
Ah, okay.
He only made it worse. Our collective strength is exercised through government. It is, in effect, our immune system.
The government is our immune system. So government is the answer to fight the virus.
Trouble.
Huh?
That's why we're in trouble.
So
that's probably the most honest thing he's said since everything began, is that COVID is the, what do you say, the symptom? COVID's the symptom of the problem. But the thing is that COVID, not the disease.
Well, the diseased government is, that's interesting. It wasn't honest at all, though, Vicky, because he said government was the immune system. Government makes us immune from nasty things.
Well, that's certainly not true. You're right about that.
Government is the disease.
Government is the one that has enabled all of this. Government, everything that's happening is by design. This is a designed world.
That is exactly right, because we know where they're wanting to go. And I want to get into those, the passports and COVID pass and all that stuff today as time progresses here, because this is very, very chilling where they want to take the populace. But anyway, continuing on, just like the Australian government, and we're going to talk about Australia today as well, because honestly, I believe they're the tip of the spear. I think that what's going on right now in Australia is where they're wanting to take everybody. I mean, people are losing their freedoms left and right. I mean, certainly we've lost a lot of it here. And I believe that everything that's going on with face diapers today and all the mandates, you can't go into a store, you can't be in public places unless you have your face diaper. I think it's going to be the passports, the health passports, electronic records, and vaccinations. Your vaccinations all have to be up to date, including the COVID-19 vaccination, the latest version, because, it's not just going to be a one-time shot. I firmly believe
the term global systems.
Yes, global totalitarian systems. I've said it often. Yeah. This is not going to be a one-time deal. And I think that the ruling elite have done everything they can to try to, for years, depopulate the planet. From the planning of wars, the various other measures of control to try to kill off the people, to cull the masses. People are voluntarily not reproducing today, because when you look around and see the world that they have created, do you want to bring a child into this world? Seeing all the chaos and destruction?
And I understood the world the way that I do today, I would not have children. I would not.
Yeah. Yeah, and
because we're just going through progressive rounds of tightening down the screws.
The noose is tightening.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so people are voluntarily not reproducing. They're voluntarily, like you said, not having children. On the left, many of them are doing it as a matter of, the people who really bought into climate change and the sustainable development nonsense. They're not doing it out of principle, which is fine with me, because less of them is good for all of us. But the point is that people on the right look around and see the world being in chaos and destruction, increasingly feeling threatened, and they want a secure place to raise their children. So they're choosing not to have children. And so it's a tragedy.
It's perfectly rational. And the only people that will have children are the people who, I'm not going to say it.
The controllers, the people, the troublemakers. Those are the people that will have children. The people who are the billionaires.
No, I was going to say the people that are low IQ, okay?
Yeah, well,
now,
that's
we're not
true.
supposed to have people that are low IQ. Everybody's supposed to be equal and the same. But that's one of the big lies that we all go along with that simply isn't true. And we all know it isn't true. But we all say it anyway.
Yeah.
So
there you go. But anyway, just like the Australian government, a little Orwellian doublespeak for you.
That, of course, we will wear masks because we are smart and because I care about you and because you care about me. Of course we will...
wait a minute. I don't care about him. What's
he
talking
about? I don't either.
Of course we will socially distance.
Of course.
Because staying away shows how close we actually are.
There you go. Staying away shows how close we really are.
It's so insane. I mean, it's so laughable.
Oh man,
I don't know.
Who thinks of these things? And they're saying, and we mentioned that saying last week, staying apart keeps us together. That's what they're saying in Australia. Staying apart keeps us together. You talk about Orwell, you talk about dystopian. But that's where we are today. We're living a dystopian nightmare, Vicky. I keep waiting for the book to end, but we're living in the book, and we can't get the book to end.
Yeah, and there is no logic to the book. It is like being in Alice in Wonderland. This is a different world, a new world, and it makes no sense. Yeah. There is no logic. Everything is in reverse. I watched this really good interview on American thought leaders, and I can't tell you what the name of the guy was. We'll put it in the show notes. But he was talking about the Marxists and their it's just reverse. You know what? They hate Western society so much that whatever it is that people in the Western world believe in, what we hold dear, what's important to us, they go the reverse. Right? The exact opposite. Even though it makes no sense whatsoever, there's no logic to it other than to just flip things upside down. Yeah. And it was really good, but I mean, in terms of my being able to talk about it, other than in simplistic terms, I can't do it. So what you need to do is go listen to that guy because he really understands it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Finally, here comes the pitch.
Yes, we will set up testing and tracing and do whatever we need to do to mobilize to win this battle because we are America. We win wars.
You know what? It just dawns on me that I could put probably some of these speeches, like people like Cuomo and other people, you know, the invisible enemy, like Donald Trump makes the invisible enemy speeches. I could probably take some of that if I had time to do so and go back during the George W. Bush years when he's talking about Al-Qaeda and the boogeyman that are going to get you there. And I could probably splice them side by side, and I'll bet they would sound very similar. What do you think?
I think that's probably true.
Because it's just another day, another year, and another decade, but yet it's the same old tactic. They're using this to scare people.
Fear. It's fear porn.
Exactly. Whoops, what happened?
And we are the greatest country on the globe. And for all the pain and all the tears, our way worked. And it was beautiful. We showed that our better angels are strong and that Americans will rise to their call. We saw that even at the end of the day, even if it is a long day, that love wins. Americans' eyes have been opened.
Love wins, even as people yell each other down at the store for not wearing a face diaper.
And we have seen in this crisis the truth that government matters and leadership matters. And it determines whether we thrive and grow or whether we live or die. Now we need a leader as good as our people. A leader who appeals to the best within us, not the worst. A leader who can unify, not divide.
A leader who pins women against the walls and digitally penetrates them.
A leader who can bring us up, not tear us down. I know that man. I've worked with that man. I've seen his talent. I've seen his strength. I've seen his pain, and I've seen his heart. That man is Joe Biden.
I've seen him be confused and wander off. Anyway. Yeah, Joe Biden. Thank you very much. All right, so anyway, that's Cuomo and the snooze fest.
He's trying to make government the solution for the problem that they created by globalizing the economy and allowing corporations to become so big and so wealthy and so powerful that they are the ones that are dictating the terms.
Yeah. Now we have this Democratic conspiracy theory that has been put forward, distracting everyone, that the Postal Service is moving boxes in order to disenfranchise voters. The real voter fraud is moving forward. Nancy Morgan Hart of Headlines with a Voice. She does a lot of excellent work. I don't even think that I have doubts that that's her real name, however, because Nancy Morgan Hart was an historical figure that was a rebel. Anyway, but whether it is or whether it isn't, she does a great job putting these things together and puts out a lot of really good information. Love to have her as a guest on the show. But anyway, she did an expose on the fact that the Postal Service obtained a patent back in February, long before the lockdowns had begun.
Just how long has the U.S. Postal Service been planning to run the 2020 election? It's an honest question, because on February 7th, 2020, the U.S. Postal Service filed a patent for a blockchain-based voting system. The Postal Service filed the patent before any lockdowns in the U.S. took place, and before any talk of voting by mail, because of U.S. lockdowns that have now been extended through the summer to Election Day. So it stands to reason that the blockchain-based voting system was in development long before the patent was filed, doesn't it? The question then becomes, if the lockdowns and mandatory social distancing are in fact the reason for the U.S. Postal Service blockchain-based voting system, why were they working on establishing a centralized electronic vote tally system for all U.S. elections long before the lockdowns went into effect? The U.S. Postal Service is going to control the U.S. election. They claim that they're going to do it securely through their blockchain system. The problem is that most people aren't experts on blockchain technology, and they don't know if the system is in fact secure. William Binney, the global tech head of the NSA for several decades, stated the following, quote, "If we want to get into anybody's account, we can. Anyone's account, anywhere. There isn't any encryption that can't keep us out." End quote. And one simply needs to look at the history of electronic voting to understand that Binney is in fact correct. The first electronic voting system was the Smartmatic Corporation, which was started by two friends of Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. They have a long list of manipulated election results in Venezuela and other Central and South American countries. Smartmatic Corporation's electronic voting machines were originally brought into the United States by Republicans to run the Republican primary in Utah. Since then, ownership of Smartmatic has changed hands several times. And whether it's Smartmatic or some other electronic voting system, it's been well established that the results are easily electronically manipulated from a central location.
Okay, we got to take the break. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us, folks. This is Govern America.
Before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order. New world order.
This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
The councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
Live from Fremont Regions 5 and 10, this is hour number 2 of Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. Vicky Davis is here as well. Continues to be the 22nd of August, 2020 at noon Eastern Daylight Time. And if you're listening at that time, then we are, in fact, live. If you're listening at a different time, we aren't. It's just that simple. I forgot to mention also that we do have the phone bridge back up. We have had it up for the last half hour. So if you'd like to call in, you can do so now. 610-600-1776. That's 610-600-1776. Or toll-free 844-646-8376. Vicky, I don't know if you have anything to add about that last story that we did. We kind of had to finish up with the clip and go right to the break regarding the Postal Service and the pre-patenting of things that happened, I guess, last February, patenting their system.
And it makes logical sense. You know, we've got post offices all over the country in every small town, and but the problem is, do we really trust them? And
well, I don't trust them for elections, that's for sure.
Yeah, actually, I don't even trust our election officials anymore. So,
well, the Postal Service has been attacked for years. They have been gutted by Congress. Let's just start there. I mean, anytime any business that you mandate to make their retirement, their pension funds solvent from, have enough money on hand now for many, many years into the future, Congress pretty much set them up to fail, I think.
Well, if you don't pre-fund your pension fund that you promise, you end up with a situation like we had with corporations. Congress said, oh, yeah, you can spend the money, and then just, as your people retire, then you can take that out of your regular fund. So what ends up happening is the corporations then cry poverty. Oh, we can't pay these pensions. So people that worked in a lifetime for a company were promised a pension, and it's gone. Too bad.
Yeah, I think, though, a lot of the stuff
and the replacement for it was, of course, the 401ks. So you put it in the stock market, and they rob you through the stock market.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I don't know. I think that a lot of this stuff, your investments, most retirement plans hinge upon investments. And whether those investments do well or not depends upon how much you have in your retirement plan.
And where they invest, like
and
California,
where they invest.
CalPERS. I remember when the announcement was made that CalPERS was going to invest in China. I actually sent them an email, and I said, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Not that I thought it was going to do any good, but I thought at least, maybe somebody will think about this. But they went ahead and did it anyway. So now you have people whose retirement depends on China doing well, and China doing well is destroying our country.
Yeah. So no business, no corporation. I don't think there's any corporation that guarantees the pensions of people like the United States Postal Service. I could be wrong, but I don't think this is the way things are typically done. I mean, they put what amounts to really an impossible mandate on them.
Well,
and,
no,
at a time too
done.
that they were already having
it was done. The 50s and 60s, that was having a pension fund was a benefit. Offering a pension, it was a benefit that was offered to employees, and it wasn't just the government; it was all the big corporations as well. So it was like offering health insurance benefits. It was something that corporations did to attract employees to their company.
Yeah.
And so the post office doing it was not out of the ordinary. That was the standard. That was the norm.
Well, I don't know. They have to have all this money saved up at a time when they don't hardly have the operating costs to continue operating.
And why is that? It's because Congress torpedoed our economy with the 21st century move to automate absolutely everything in society for maximum efficiency, maximum efficiency, even though they were violating every tenet of the Constitution and of human values in terms of people being able to live autonomously. It was Congress that allowed these systems of the police state to be developed.
Yeah. We got Dan in Kentucky on the line. Let's go ahead and take his call. Hello, Dan. You're on the air.
Morning, Darren and Vicky. Some quick things about the Postal Service. Franklin set it up in the 13 colonies well before the American Revolution, and the Postal Service was a template for public-private partnerships, and Franklin was American Masonic, and he was in that Hellfire Club in London where they found a lot of dead babies, etc., but still he opposed the Illuminati from Weishaupt coming over, the European Masons coming over. But in the 1850s or so, Lysander Spooner had a competing postal service that made the post office decrease their stamps to a penny. So this is a setup for the post office to do this, and one person behind it is Shiva Yagazurai, that guy that's running against that fake Indian Warren in Massachusetts. His slogan is vote for a real Indian, because he's from India. His caste is untouchable, and his father came here when the kid was 7, but he's a multimillionaire, and he has some dirt on him, but he's connected with MIT and this blockchain that he was building. He proposed in 95 that the post office send mail as an option by email, which they refused. But in 2016, the post office approached him to do the same thing through the blockchain. So what you're talking about is this proposal that I think Yagazurai has been working on with MIT to propose blockchain. And like you said, people don't understand the blockchain. So this is a setup for American elections, and a lot of people don't know where they can vote. For example, in our primaries, if we wanted to vote, you had to go to the state fairgrounds and stand 6 feet apart in a long line all day in the sun, you know. A couple other things. Palantir is moving their headquarters to Denver.
Yeah, I saw that.
Very dangerous. That's part of this continuation of government, that Denver is the new capital, especially if they want trouble in D.C. or either to fumigate, maybe chemical attack the White House like Pelosi said. Another thing, I haven't seen the plan, but the Club of Rome has a new plan for saving the world. So it's some kind of new document. And this morning at 6 a.m. Central, Darren,
yes,
Govern America had a documentary on from the UN conference in 92 about world government, and they were talking about the origin of this was Rothschild talking about the 4 worlds, and Rothschild coined the term the fourth world. You know, the world doesn't mean how rich they are, the 4 worlds. It means when they emerged. So the fourth world came out because of environmental reason and using the environment to say how poor some of these fourth world countries are. But the whole idea behind this documentary you had on was to Rothschild's plan to merge the 4 worlds first, second, third, and fourth into one world government. So they're using environmentalism to claim poverty and therefore to promote that. Mm-hmm. Another thing, Buffett is buying Barrick Gold, which is an Illuminati company, and dumping Goldman Sachs. And the other thing, Vicky, you were talking about that documentary you heard where the American Thought Leaders Society, I think they're from Epic Times program, they are talking about reversing absolutely everything, and that's exactly what the Satanists do. They have the Baphomet goat symbol upside down. Everything is good as evil. That's why the face masks are part of this initiation, and the reason it's so insidious is because our culture suppresses the context of everything. So when they reverse it, people give into the programming and don't realize that they're being coaxed into evil until it's too late.
Yeah, people get confused, when they're used to things working in one way, and then it suddenly starts. It seems sudden, but there is a conditioning period before that. But when things start going the other direction, which is exactly what they do, and if that's Satanism, then that's exactly what's occurring in our country. Or what the Democrats want to do, it's reversing, reversing the norm.
And all through history, and they've done the same thing to coax people into things, and then it's too late, and people are creatures of habit, and the Heraclitus and Confucius, the saying goes, habits create character, and character creates destiny. Well, that's what they're using.
Yeah.
What that would say is that people don't have good enough characters because they're allowing this to all happen. Or am I misreading what you said?
No. That's right. Well, people are led. The ancient Chinese system was, and the Hebrew system too, was to lead people from the top toward good. But if you got good people, bad people get at the top, then they're led toward evil. Because Lomachovsky proved in his book Political Polarology that 88% of people are followers. They're ego-dominated, and they'll follow whatever. And the same thing is true in ad statistics. When they do marketing, 88% of people will buy whatever you tell them. So it depends on whether you have good people at the top or not, and that's why Jefferson and other people talked about you need a moral society, in order for people to have a good country, educated, moral people. But anyway, I think I sent you all the how to make your own HCl with quinine. You peel fruit or lemon, and and people really need to do that and get some chelated zinc and azithromycin. And American Can We Talk? Deborah, I forget her last name, has a good thing on a lot of cures for the virus, even one that Newsweek debunks that I just saw. But, there's solutions out there.
Yes, there are.
Really important.
Yeah, the problem isn't the virus. The problem is the viruses that we have in government that are imposing all this tyranny on us.
It's the dialectic, the system that they're building to handle the pandemic.
The problem, the biggest problem that we face...
The Prince Philip, don't you, Darren?
What's that?
He wants to be reincarnated as a virus.
Well, they claim that we're the virus.
Human beings are a disease, a cancer of this planet. You are a plague. And we are the cure.
We are the cure.
I went to the ER and a doctor and everything, and to a restaurant and all that. I didn't wear a mask. Nobody said anything. People have to just say no.
Well, sometimes you can get away with it. Like I went over to I had to have some things notarized, and I went to the notary, and I walked in, noticed she wasn't wearing the face diaper, and I said, "Hey," I says, "you don't require face diapers." And she says, "No, I don't require them," even though it's by executive order. The Queen here in our state has declared her fiat that everybody must have these things on when they walk into a public place. And yet she didn't have, this notary didn't have it on. She said, "I don't require it." And I said, "Great." I says, "because I think the whole thing," she says, "is a personal choice." And I said, "Well, I choose not to." She says, I said, "I think the whole thing is ridiculous." And she says, "Then we agree on something."
Pull a honeymooner switch on him. Tell all your buddies in Michigan that she's queen of nothing. You know, like the Ralph Cramden on Honeymooners used to say. Jackie Gleason would say, "I'm king," and she said, "You're king of nothing." Well, she's queen of nothing in Michigan if people don't honor those policies, which aren't even legal.
Yeah. Well, it certainly is.
Yeah, you bring up a good point, though, that people should understand. The public health system is different than our medical system, our medical health care system. They kind of run in parallel, but they are different systems.
Yeah. Hey, Dan, I got to move on, but I really appreciate the call. Thank you very much for your input. God bless you, sir.
Yeah, that's why it has a different coding system. God bless you all.
Yeah, God bless you. All right, we'll talk later. All right, there it is, Dan in Kentucky. Yeah, I mean, these executive orders, certainly the courts seem to find her stuff legal. The legislature can't seem to get it to act together because we have a divided legislature here, so they can't seem to get the act together to revoke the executive power law that they gave her, that they passed I think it was the 1950s. So she's just continuing to operate as a dictator, and there's no end in sight to any of this.
Well, this is the opportunity for the Marxist takeover. They were our legislature. They were induced into developing this global emergency management system, and what, of course, would be a global emergency, a pandemic.
Yeah.
So let's plan and develop this system for a catastrophic medical event. But the thing is, and remember, I don't know if you remember in the early 2000s when they were talking about smallpox.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if there's a real pandemic, you're not going to have to tell people to stay in their homes. They will stay in their homes out of self-preservation.
Yeah.
But what they did is they empowered this public health system, which is the Marxists, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And they've given them basically unrestricted authority to become dictatorial.
Yes.
So what they've done with this fake pandemic is that they've turned our country over to the Marxists.
And the whole thing is a communitarian dictatorship because, hey, you got to think about other people. You got to think about the community. This is all for the well good. The common good. That's absolutely right. So that's what this is all about. It's about imposing communitarian dictates upon everybody under the color of law. And they're doing anyway. I wanted to circle around briefly back to the subject of the post office. I want to make a slight correction. The 2006 law, according to the Institute for Policy Studies, in 2006 Congress passed a law that imposed extraordinary costs on the U.S. Postal Service. The Postal Accountability and Enhancement Act is what it was called. This is the problem with me doing things off memory. It was actually not to fund the pensions themselves. It was actually to fund the post-retirement health care costs. That's what it was. 75 years into the future. So the Postal Service had to raise $72 billion due to this congressional mandate to fund the post-retirement health care costs of their workers 75 years into the future. So,
oh, yeah, that was a mistake.
Well, I don't think it was a mistake at all because what I think the plan was, I don't know what, I suspect, at the time I suspected that they were trying to bankrupt the Postal Service because they wanted all mail to be handled by, all these other private corporations.
Well, that's a possibility. You can do things in a forward way or a backward way. And bankrupting the post office by making them pre-fund health benefits 50 years into the future, that's certainly
75 years into the future.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
75 years into the future. Yeah. So that's a huge amount of money to come up with for anybody. And especially at a time when the Postal Service was having to adapt. Certainly they were still adapting to the onslaught of the loss of business pertaining to, so many different people. A lot of people were, I don't know, I think there was probably a drop. It would have been interesting to see the numbers, the percentages of people that quit sending mail through the Postal Service because they could send, communications more easily through the Internet. 2006, yeah, a lot of people were just getting computers, I think, in 2006. So that was quite...
I don't know. Everybody I knew had computers by about 2000. I mean, I helped my dad get one in 1998, and all my relatives got one, even without my help. But
well, regardless, I mean, that is... The Internet really, for me anyway, came along in the late 90s. And I know, it goes back further than that, and, prior to that you had ARPANET and all that. But the Internet was still relatively new. The bottom line is communications was people were shipping a lot less. I don't know. I think it could very well have been very devastating for the Postal Service monetarily to not be able to have all that mail going through there. They had to have taken a hit. No
question about it. And so what they were using is the volume of junk mail to fund the post office.
Yeah.
So I mean,
there's some increase.
It's still bad, but it's not as bad. Where you go to the mailbox and your mailbox would be just filled with junk mail.
Yeah. Anyway, we have the governor of Maine, speaking of governors and dictatorial mandates, the governor of Maine has come out and mandated that restaurant staff wear COVID visors that look exactly like dog cones. Have you seen this?
No, I haven't. Dog cones?
Yes, they look exactly like dog cones. This is
what the hell, around their neck?
Paul Joseph Watson is writing this in InfoWars. The governor of Maine has ordered restaurant staff to wear anti-COVID visors upside down so they resemble dog cones in order to direct breath upwards.
Oh, my God. You know what?
I hadn't read this before.
The big test of this is how stupid can we make these regulations and still have people follow them?
I wonder if they, mandated that you wear a shirt with a button missing. I mean, I could see them doing anything at this point.
Yeah.
Dog direct breath upwards. Yes, we want to make sure that the breath is directed upwards so that you... I mean, this is so thing... I mean, and then it's got a picture of this restaurant worker who... Sherry Tenpenny, I guess, tweeted it out. But, it's got this woman holding plates of salad or some salad-looking substance. And she's got this dog cone on her head, on her neck, on her shoulders. And now you can see her face. You can still see her face, and she's not wearing the face diaper. Governor Janet Mills is the brilliant mastermind evidently behind this. Her decree states that the front of house staff in restaurants who choose to wear face shields must now wear them upside down so that they are attached at the collar instead of the forehead.
How stupid
so
can
that their
we
breath
be?
Is directed up, not down. I wonder if they're going to try to get satellite signals from outer space, because that's what it looks. They look like they're walking satellite dishes. Given that the air conditioning units can facilitate the spread of coronavirus, Mills' order looks like another ridiculous and pointless measure. As a symbol of submission, forcing us to obliterate our individuality by wearing masks was not explicit enough, writes David Blout. So they push the envelope even further. No one can miss the significance of making people wear dog cones. You know
what? I would have to be a terrorist in that situation. And if I worked there, I'd try to get all of my co-workers to sneeze into their cone. Just blow saliva and snot right in front of the customer.
Well, the thing is that...
Gross them out so they don't want to eat there.
The military likes to call their soldiers dog, you have dog tags, right?
Uh-huh.
So isn't it just fitting that you put dog cones on the general populace?
Well, yeah, but what they're trying to do with the military is break them down so they can build them back up in the way that the military wants them.
Isn't that what they're trying to do?
I read an article about that. It's all psychological and for a purpose. It's not just, some sergeant making things up as he goes. There is a method to it.
Yeah. Well, I think that they're trying to break the population down.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that they can rebuild them back up.
Uh-huh.
So, anyway, there's that. But, hey, Vicky, we talked earlier about how, the DNC convention and how evidently Donald Trump got a boost in popularity as a result of this. Well, why would that be? Well, maybe it had something to do with part of it could have been something Joe Biden said. Once he gets in there.
We lead the world in confirmed cases. We lead the world in deaths. Our economy is in tatters with Black, Latino, Asian American, Native American communities bearing the brunt of it. And after all this time, the president still does not have a plan. Well, I do. If I'm your president, on day one, we'll implement the national strategy I've been laying out since March. We'll develop and deploy rapid tests with results available immediately.
I thought we already developed rapid tests. Don't we have that going on right now?
I told you, it's all about the systems. Yeah. You know what?
Well, he's got more.
And saying that Black, Latino, all those people have been hit the hardest, baloney. The people that have been hit the hardest are the senior citizens in the old folks' homes.
Yeah, where they sent the COVID-positive people.
Of senior citizens.
Yeah, where they sent the Democratic governors sent the COVID-positive people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they've been hit the hardest. Absolutely.
We'll make the medical supplies and protective equipment that our country needs. And we'll make them here in America. So we will never again be at the mercy of China or other foreign countries in order to protect our own people.
That sounds like Donald Trump, doesn't he? Isn't he?
He does. He's stealing Donald Trump's material.
Talking points. Absolutely.
We'll make sure our schools have the resources they need to be open, safe, and effective. We'll put politics aside.
Sure we will.
We'll take the muzzle off our experts.
And muzzle the general population.
So the public gets the information they need and deserve. Honest, unvarnished truth.
Mm-hmm.
They can handle it.
We're not going to give it to them, though.
We'll have a national mandate to wear masks.
There
it is. Not as a burden, but as a patriotic duty to protect one another.
There you go. There you go. So, hey, elect me. I'm going to take away more of your freedoms. National mask mandate.
That's appealing, isn't it?
I honestly don't know why anybody would select this guy. Other than, I guess it's just a litmus test of, does your hatred for Donald Trump overpower? And not that I'm a big Trump supporter either. I got to keep throwing that in there. But, this is the best that they can do.
Yeah, Donald Trump is the one that declared this whole COVID pandemic.
I'm very upset with Donald Trump.
He turned our country over to the Marxists.
But the point is, though, is that Trump wasn't able, on a federal level, to do what all of these governors are doing on a state level. So, who's to blame? I think there's plenty of blame to go around. I'll be perfectly honest about it. All right. Anyway, I wanted to get into some morality news, Vicky. This is actually very, very upsetting. The Conversation.com carried an article. It was I guess you'd call it a commentary or op-ed or whatever, by a guy named Parker Crutchfield. Parker Crutchfield is an associate professor of medical ethics at Western Michigan University. This guy is pushing for pills to make the population compliant. That's essentially. Let me share with you some of what,
like a chemical lobotomy.
Well, the title of the thing, yes, kind of, yes, exactly. Morality pills may be the U.S.'s best shot at ending the coronavirus pandemic, according to one ethicist. Let me read you what this guy has to say. You're gonna the fact that this guy has the nerve. Okay, COVID-19, he says, is a collective risk. It threatens everyone, and we all must cooperate to lower the chance that the coronavirus harms any one individual. Among other things, that mean now keep in mind this coronavirus has killed again less than 0.1% of the population that it infects. Okay, so it's a big tempest in a teapot. But we got to all make sure we cooperate and be subservient to the state in order to mitigate this huge, giant, monstrous boogeyman threat that it poses upon all of us. Anyway, he says, among other things, that means keeping safe social distancing and wearing masks. But many people choose not to do these things, making spread of infection more likely. When someone chooses not to allow public health guidelines around the coronavirus, they're defecting from the public good. The public good. It's the moral equivalent of the tragedy of the commons. If everyone shares the same pasture for their individual flocks, some people are going to graze their animals longer or let them eat more than their fair share, ruining the commons in the process. Selfish and self-defeating behavior undermines the pursuit of something from which everyone can benefit. Democratically enacted enforceable rules. I don't think anybody voted for this, by the way. Democratically enacted. I don't see any democratic. I didn't vote for any face diapers. Democratically enacted enforceable rules mandating things like mask wearing and social distancing might work if defectors could be coerced into adhering to them. But
so now we're political enemies.
That's right. But not all states have opted to pass them or enforce the rules that are in place. My research in bioethics focuses on questions like how to induce those who are non-cooperative to get on board with doing what's best for the public good. To me, it seems the problem of coronavirus defectors could be solved by moral enhancement. Moral enhancement.
Yeah, that is fascinating because that is an example of how the rhetoric turns the table. Okay, our country is based on individual values, you know, and just the individual. But they're slowly shifting it around. He's using a moral argument to shift it around to make individuals who think as individuals
enemies.
Political enemies.
Absolutely.
That's fascinating.
He says the problem of coronavirus defectors could be solved by moral enhancement, like receiving a vaccine to beef up your immune system. People could take a substance to boost their cooperative, pro-social behavior. Could a psychoactive pill be the solution to the pandemic?
Who is this guy? What's his name?
He's a professor of medical ethics in Western Michigan University.
You know what?
His name is Parker Crutchfield.
Because they've used the universities. It just came to me this morning. You know, when I was thinking about the voting system, it was the Autonomous University of Barcelona that developed a voting system, an online voting system, and they were intending to use it for everything, for local initiatives, for the state initiatives, and they just kind of developed it out. But the connection, the global system that is the connection to universities, to quote research universities, those universities are the technocrat universities.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the whole big deal is about research universities. So it's the professors that are driving a lot of this technocratic tyranny.
Yeah, absolutely. And you wonder why all these people that are going around rioting and don't know their identities, and I mean, you wonder why the next generation's so screwed up.
Yeah, well,
they sit under people like this guy.
Teaching them philosophy based on tyranny.
Yeah,
the tyranny of control while proclaiming freedom, freedom, freedom.
You ask who he is, Parker Crutchfield, his bio on the West Michigan, and I got more to read from that, by the way, because it's just mind-blowing. Parker Crutchfield, Ph.D., received his bachelor's degree in philosophy at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. He completed his Ph.D. in philosophy at Arizona State University, working in applied ethics, epistemology, and the philosophy of science. Following graduate school, he was assistant professor of ethics and the inaugural director of research at the Missouri School of Dentistry and Oral Health at A.T. Still University, a school which he helped found. An associate professor in the program in medical ethics, humanities, and law at Western Michigan University, Dr. Crutchfield conducts clinical ethics consultations, teaches medical students and residents, and conducts research in medical ethics. So, I mean, this is why this guy is so dangerous. Is, it's one thing to have a crackpot nutcase theory about things, and this is what we need to do, and blah blah blah. I mean, by virtue of the fact that this guy is in a position where he is instructing young, impressionable minds, this guy is extremely dangerous, and he's garnered a lot of attention for himself, which may be part of it.
He did? He did us all a big favor because he clarified the role that philosophy is playing in this whole thing, which I really hadn't focused on. Because the design of the systems comes from technocrats, people that are engineering-minded. Even if you're engineering society, it doesn't make any difference if you're designing a system. It's engineering. But the philosophy, the justification for the system has to come from philosophy. So that's why there's all this focus on philosophy and anthropology and those sociology, because it's to explain to people, give people a justification in their mind for what is being built as 21st century systems that are in fact the police state.
Yes.
And these are young people. They just don't know.
They don't know any better. Evidence, right. He says, evidence from experimental economics show that defections are common to situations in which people face collective risks. Economists use public goods games to measure how people behave in various scenarios to lower collective risks, such as from climate change or a pandemic, and to prevent the loss of public and private goods. The evidence from these experiments is no cause for optimism. Usually everyone loses because people won't cooperate. This research suggests it's not surprising people aren't wearing masks or social distancing. Lots of people defect from groups when facing a collective risk. By the same token, I'd expect that as a group we will fail at addressing the collective risk of COVID-19 because groups usually fail. For more than 150,000 Americans so far, this has meant losing everything there is to lose. But don't abandon all hope. In some of these experiments, the groups win and successfully prevent the losses associated with the collective risk. What makes winning more likely? Things like keeping a running tally of what others are contributing, observing others' behaviors, communication and coordination before and during play, and democratic implementation of
social credit.
Democratic implementation of an enforceable rule requiring contributions. Again, where's the democracy? First of all, we don't want democracy because democracy is mob rule. We don't have a democratic system in our country. We have a republic, if you can keep it, and clearly we haven't. So, anyway, he says, for those of us in the United States, these conditions are out of reach when it comes to COVID-19. You can't know what others are contributing to the fight against the coronavirus, especially if you socially distance yourself, it's impossible to keep a running tally of what the other 328 million people in the U.S. are doing. And communication and coordination are not feasible outside of your own small group. Even if these factors were achievable, they still require the very cooperative behavior that's in short supply. The scale of the pandemic is simply too great for any of this to be possible. It seems that the U.S. is not currently equipped to cooperatively lower the risk confronting us. Many are instead pinning their hopes on the rapid deployment and distribution of an enhancement to the immune system, a vaccine. But I believe society may be better off, both in the short term as well as the long, by boosting not the body's ability to fight the disease, but the brain's ability to cooperate with others. What if researchers developed and delivered a moral enhancer rather than an immunity enhancer? Moral enhancement, Vicky, is the use of substances to make you more moral. The psychoactive substances act on your ability to reason about what the right thing to do is, or your ability to be empathetic or altruistic or cooperative. For example, oxytocin, that chemical that, among other things, can induce labor or increase the bond between mother and child, may cause a person to be more empathetic, altruistic, more giving and generous. The same goes for psilocybin. Psilocybin, I guess is how you pronounce that. The active
psilocybin?
Psilocybin? Okay,
the magic mushroom?
Okay, yes. The active component of magic mushrooms. These substances have been shown to lower aggressive behavior in those with antisocial personality disorder and to improve the ability of sociopaths to recognize emotion in others. These substances interact directly with the psychological underpinnings of moral behavior. Others that make you more rational could also help. Then perhaps the people who choose to go maskless or flout social distancing guidelines would better understand that everyone, including them, is better off when they contribute, and rationalize that the best thing to do is cooperate. Can you believe this? He says there's, of course, pitfalls to moral enhancement. One is that the science isn't developed enough. For example, while oxytocin may cause some people to be more pro-social, it also appears to encourage ethnocentrism, and so is probably a bad candidate for a widely distributed moral enhancement. But this doesn't mean... I love
that. Moral enhancement.
Yeah. But this doesn't mean that a morality pill is impossible. The solution to the underdeveloped science isn't to quit on it, but to direct resources, related research in neuroscience, psychology, or one of the behavioral sciences. Another challenge is that the defectors who need moral enhancement are also the least likely to sign up for it. As some have argued, a solution would be to make moral enhancement compulsory, or administer it secretly, perhaps via the water supply.
Yeah, he must have been listening to... Well, if they did that to the entire population, then what happens to people that are already very empathetic and motherly, want to take care of everybody? You know, if you get too much of something, what's that? This is so insane.
Sick.
It's so
sick is the
word. And they're letting him teach at a university.
Yes. This is what's so outrageous about it. Just finishing this up because you got a little bit more to go. These actions require weighing other values. Does the good of covertly dosing the public with a drug that would change people's behavior outweigh individuals' autonomy to choose whether to participate? Does the good associated with wearing a mask outweigh an individual's autonomy to not wear one? The scenario in which the government forces an immunity booster upon everyone is plausible, and the military has been forcing enhancements like vaccines or quote-unquote uppers upon soldiers for a long time. The scenario, but you see, the difference is you sign up to be a soldier. You sign up for that. You sign a contract. Now, I don't agree with all that, but, you know, at least you don't have to sign that contract.
Well, but they're collectivizing all of us. That's what the whole point is, the common good.
Yeah, we're the property.
We're all supposed to be operating for the common good. So we're all in the military, effectively.
Yeah,
right?
Essentially, yeah. The scenario in which the government forces a morality booster upon everyone is far-fetched, but a strategy like this one could be a way out of this pandemic, a future outbreak, or the sufferings associated with climate change. That's why we should be thinking of it now. So, I've got other things. He's got engendering. See, this guy, now, I did a little research on him. He is a transhumanist. Okay? He's all in with the transhuman program. He put out a thing. There's a paper online, engendering moral post-persons. Engendering moral post-persons, a novel self-help strategy. The abstract of the paper says humans are morally deficient in various variety of ways. Some of these deficiencies threaten the continued existence of our species. For example, we appear to be incapable of responding to climate change in ways that are likely to prevent the consequent suffering. Some people are morally better than others, but we could all be better. The price of not becoming morally better is that when these events that threaten us occur, we will suffer from them. If we can prevent this suffering from occurring, then we ought to do so. Then we ought to make ourselves morally better in order to prevent very bad things from happening, justifies, according to some, the development and administration of moral enhancement. So there he is pushing that again. I address in this paper the idea that moral enhancement could give rise to moral transhumans or moral post-persons. Contrary,
well, yeah, especially if he's going to chemically alter your brain with a chemical lobotomy.
Yeah, or genetically engineer.
That is transhumanism, changing your...
Yeah. And I with ideas being put forward like this, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if this vaccine that they're trying to push doesn't have something like that in it. I mean, we don't know.
Yeah, I think you could count on it. I bet he loves China just like Bill Gates.
Well, I wouldn't be a bit surprised. There's another paper making people better, saving us from ourselves through moral enhancement. This was a talk. He says this thing promoting the talk says climate change terrorists with nuclear or biological weapons and AI run amok threaten humanity's future. These threats arise from our morally deficient behavior. If we can prevent the great harm that results from these events, we must do so. As technology develops to make possible the biological repair of our moral deficiencies, we may have such an opportunity. Crutchfield argues not only that we ought to pursue the biological enhancement of our moral capacities, but also the biological enhancement of our moral capacities ought to be mandatory and administered in secret. In other words, the project of moral enhancement ought to be a compulsory and covert public health program aimed at improving our moral deficiencies. He argues further that we should use the biological enhancement of moral capacities to bring about beings who are so morally superior to us that they cannot be properly called human.
Oh my God, I couldn't live in a world where people were so morally superior.
Well, the problem is whose morality? And there's the $10 million question. By creating moral transhumans, we can save us from ourselves. Well, I don't think I need to be saved from myself, Vicky. I think humanity needs to be saved from people like this guy.
Absolutely, no question about it. He should be locked up. That man is dangerous. Insane.
Well, I won't say.
And he's teaching our young people. How many young people is he teaching that are going to go into biochemistry or something like that,
or
to work
government
on the morality vaccine?
Yeah, how many people are going into government and have positions of power or bureaucracy to impose these insane anti-freedom ideas upon the general population? Yeah, anti-human, anti-people. So I did a little digging because I was trying to find some kind of and there's another article too. Are you creeped out by the idea of a moral enhancement pill? Because this idea evidently isn't a new one. This article is from 2017. Are you creeped out? An original title was "Why Are We So Alarmed by the Idea?" They changed the headline because you can see the original headline was in the URL. which stayed the same after they changed the headline. So originally it said, "Why are we so alarmed by the idea of a moral enhancement pill?" So
because we recognize
that's from Slate.
Psychotic when we hear them.
And then this article mentions, because a Julian Savulescu, I just think it's interesting. I stumbled across this Julian Savulescu when I was digging for something, because I thought, well, this guy does lectures. This Crutchfield guy does lectures. So maybe there's some on YouTube. So I tried to find something of him. I didn't come across any of his, but I came across this Julian, what did I say his name was? So Savulescu. And he's basically, this presentation goes back to July of 2013.
Is that like a Romanian name or?
Yeah, I don't know.
Does it end in CESU?
It's SAVULESCU.
See, okay.
Yeah. So, anyway, this presentation was in July of 2013. And he was pushing the idea using various kinds of drugs, just like we just saw in the conversation piece I just read from, for what he calls, again, moral enhancement.
What is the cause of climate change? Carbon emissions. What's the cause of global terrorism? Religious fundamentalism. What's the cause of the Fukushima nuclear disaster? The root cause of these problems is this. It's ordinary human beings like me and you. It's human choice and behaviour that causes those problems. First of all, humans are a violent species. 1% of the human population are psychopaths, yet they're responsible for 50% of the violent crime. And then there are fanatics and ideologues. Stephen Pinker may be right that the rates of homicide are reducing, but the risk that we pose to ourselves is ever increasing through the advance of technology. Now, there's a second, even more common problem than violence. As Charles Darwin famously and brilliantly realised, we're not designed for any purposes. We're designed as the products of blind evolution. Now, for most of human history, almost all of our history, we existed as hunter-gatherers. We existed in small groups of 150, and morality and our moral dispositions evolved to facilitate cooperation within that small group. So we cared about our family and friends and our group, and we cooperated with them, but tended to free ride when we weren't observed. But we were distrustful of other strangers, xenophobic, and often at war with them over resources. We couldn't affect the distant future, so we focused on the near term. And because it was so easy to harm each other, we developed moralities about preventing harm, but not benefiting each other. Now, this kind of moral disposition, this kind of animal, is not fit for the globalised world we've created for ourselves.
It's not fit for the globalised... So right there, while purporting to be a proponent of moral enhancement, Mr. Savulescu is making a moral judgment of his own. Setting aside the arguments of those of us who reject the basis of his arguments, for instance, the theories of Charles Darwin, and evolution being among them. But he goes on to impose his own morality that the tribalism which served as the foundation of modern communities, in which outsiders are viewed with suspicion, isn't fit for the modern age of globalization. What about the values of those of us who reject globalization in favor of traditional norms?
What about those of us who recognize that in a world of 7 billion people, we might be overlooked? Maybe the food doesn't arrive and we're overlooked and our children starve, Yeah. I just can't really... I don't know why people take these people seriously. I really don't.
Well,
is anybody listening to them?
I'm taking them seriously because they are the people. The people who are, you know why we have to take them seriously is because they're instructing the next generation.
Yeah.
That's literally the predators are in charge of the chickens. whatever metaphor you choose to use.
Yeah, well, and they're doing a good job, apparently, because the Marxists in the street that want to destroy everything, they are so filled with hatred.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, I can't even imagine hatred.
It seems to me like they're the ones that need the moral enhancement.
Yeah, yeah.
It dawns on me that, throughout this whole thing, not to get all preachy or anything, but we took God out of the schools. We made it to where people couldn't pray in the schools, and God out of the public square, God out of everything, and Christianity, and, I hate to use the word religion, but, I mean, people were more moral when they adhered to the Christian tradition, for lack of a better way, the Christian relationship. Well, now that they've abandoned that, their moral compass has gone adrift. So now we got critters like this coming out of the woodwork, predators, who are preying upon the general population and trying to do the best they can to use that moral bankruptcy as a tool to steer society into ever more control. We'll be back here, folks. Stay with us.
Before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order. New world order.
This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
The councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
Live from FEMA Regions 5 and 10, this is the third and final hour of Govern America. Vicky Davis is here. I'm Darren Weeks. As we continue on here talking about moral enhancement, ladies and gentlemen, a buzz term that you'll probably be hearing more about in the coming days, I'm sure, as they are trying to control the behavior of the general population with all of the COVID-19 mandates that are all across the country.
And let me just say one thing. The governor of Idaho called a special session of the legislature to consider 3 different issues, the most important of which is to provide liability protection for anybody who follows the orders of the public health system.
I thought you were going to say liability protection, in other words, making it possible for people to sue those that don't wear masks. I could see them doing something like that. I shouldn't give them ideas.
Liability protection to, say, a National Guard guy who holds you down and jabs a needle in your arm.
Yeah. Yeah, we're sharing... sorry.
Or a doctor or a nurse or,
Yeah. We're sharing audio from a guy, a nutcase, I think, named Julian Savulescu. And he is one of these characters that are pushing this notion that we need moral enhancement, basically through the use of drugs and various chemical concoctions, many of which could potentially, become mandatory if the establishment wants their way. One thing I forgot to mention too about this other guy that we were reading his thing from the conversation. This once again, his name is Crutchfield, Parker Crutchfield. That was the original guy that I shared his article. I didn't see the tweet because it was deleted before I heard about it, but I am told, or somebody in Twitter mentioned that Johns Hopkins University had in other words, tweeted about or somehow referenced this guy's work. So evidently, there's people that, not surprisingly, because Johns Hopkins, of course, would be behind Event 201, and they're behind the
School of Public Health.
Yeah, propaganda sick map. That's we linked to it up on the website just to see what the other side is saying. But huge spook central, Johns Hopkins University, and they reference this guy's work apparently, according to what I've read. So
you know what the most frightening part about this is that if his philosophy is adopted, they could be doing this to children. They could mandate this vaccine for children. The same way that they do the polio vaccine and the other vaccines.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
did have a medical purpose, and parents wouldn't know.
No.
They'd be, like destroying their children's brains.
Well, if they put it in the water supply, then certainly nobody would know anyway. You go to McDonald's or your local coffee shop, order a coffee, and you're getting the obedient chemical.
Yeah, and let me just point out something to somebody. If you feel like investigate your environmental health department. See how many foreigners are running your policy departments, for your water district or for, your critical infrastructure that is in the control of the public health system.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Well, I know China hasn't China bought up a lot of our infrastructure? Wonder how much of it they owned.
Well, they built quite a bit of it. And
they're
thanks
building
to
it for other...
Bill Gates, there was a meeting in Blake Island meeting in 1992, right after Clinton came into office, and Bill Gates was there, and communist Chinese were there, and they came up with a plan, and I'm positive that the plans were the global systems.
Yeah. Moving along here, just to keep it moving, he goes on to talk about the global inequality.
One problem we're not fit to solve is global inequality and poverty, the failure to aid. We could solve this problem, but we choose not to. In 2008, only 5 countries, all small Scandinavian countries, had reached the very modest UN target of donating 0.7% of their gross domestic product in foreign aid. The richest countries at the time, the US and Japan, were at the bottom at 0.2%. Inequality is relentlessly increasing. Today, these 3 happy individuals, the richest men in the world, own as much as the poorest 600 million. Now, why don't we deal with this problem? The US has spent $3 trillion prosecuting its wars in Afghanistan and Iraq in response to the killing of around 2,000 people. But over 50 years has donated only $2 trillion to foreign aid, which could have saved millions, hundreds of millions of lives. The reason for this is, first of all, like our hunter-gatherer ancestors, we believe that we're responsible for what we do, but not for what we fail to do.
So, while I'm not an advocate for wars and killing, obviously, what he's pushing here, to me, sounds like the same communitarian philosophy that Immanuel Kant espoused.
What he doesn't understand, though, is that the wars were to bring those countries into the global technocratic tyranny.
Yes.
So the trillions of dollars that we've spent over in the Middle East have been to bring them into the moral system of the technocrats.
There you go. That's exactly right. And whether he knows that or not, I suspect he probably does. He's obviously not a stupid man. He's just, in my view, a very evil man. But this Immanuel Kant philosophy of you owe it to somebody else because by virtue of the fact that you have anything is indicative of some injustice of the past. We see this poison spread out. I mean, this whole thing is the very reason why a lot of this Black Lives Matter ideology, it permeates the Black Lives Matter ideology. This is the thing. I refer back to my 2015 article, Giving Back, the Communitarian Death of Benevolence. I'll put it in the show notes again for people, I quoted from Stephen Hicks, who is a modern philosopher, who calls it a false accusation, that we need to give back. Yet there is more to it. He says the phrase also denies the benevolence of the giver. If you are only giving back what is rightfully someone else's, then you do not deserve any special praise for your action. Your benevolence need not be acknowledged or honored. So the phrase really is a double injustice. It implies that you do not deserve what you have. Isn't that what we are being told as white people?
Yeah.
We don't deserve
we got everything because we have white skin.
Because of slavery, because of injustices of the past. And it denies you any credit you deserve.
They know that's not true. It's just that it really sells well in the ghetto.
And it denies you any credit you deserve for your benevolent act. Or, to put it abstractly, it is the imputation. I love it how he says this here. It is the imputation of an undeserved negative and the denial of a deserved positive. Now,
say that again. Say that again.
He said, you do not. The phrase, in other words, because what the article was about was giving back. This phrase, it kept irritating me every time I heard it, and I heard it everywhere. So the phrase "giving back," like you have to give back to the community, even though the community never really gave you anything. It's a double injustice. He says it implies that you do not deserve what you have, and it denies you any credit you deserve for your benevolent act. Or to put it abstractly, it is the imputation of an undeserved negative and the denial of a deserved positive.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So, and then he goes on to trace it to Kant, Immanuel Kant, and his lectures on ethics. Quote, Kant employs his standard distinction between inclinations and duties, arguing that actions done from inclination have no moral worth, while actions done from duty do. So if we apply this to acts of charity, charity done out of benevolence has no moral significance for Kant, while charity done out of duty does. But Kant asks, on what is the duty to be charitable based? Why ought we be charitable whether we want to or not? Kant's answer is that to give charity to the poor is to make good on past injustices. Here's the key quotation. In giving to a person in need of charity, the giver makes restitution for an injustice of which he is quite unconscious. I mean, the parallels to what's going on all over today is just unbelievable. I mean, it's off the chart. It makes restitution for an injustice of which he is quite unconscious, though unconscious of it only because he does not properly examine his position. Although we may be entirely within our rights, according to the laws of the land and the rules of our social structure, we may nevertheless be participating in general injustice, and in giving to an unfortunate man, we do not give him a gratuity, but only help to return to his that of which the general injustice of our system has deprived him.
Well, that is classic in destroying everything about society. They even want to take away from people the good feeling that you get from helping someone.
Absolutely. He says, for if none of us drew to himself a greater share of the world's wealth than his neighbor, there would be no rich or poor. Even charity, therefore, is an act of duty imposed upon us by the rights of others and the debt that we owe to them. Now that's page 194 of Lectures on Ethics from Immanuel Kant. And Stephen Hicks summarizes. He says, here we have the first part of the giving back claim made explicit, the zero-sum assumption and the consequent implication that one is merely returning something one has borrowed or stolen. On the very next page, Kant makes explicit the second assumption of giving back. Quote, a man ought to be flattered for his acts of charity. Listen to this, Vicky. Immanuel Kant says, a man ought not to be flattered for his acts of charity, lest his heart swell with generosity and desire to make benevolence the sole rule of his conduct. Now, what a terrible thing would that be, huh?
A preacher.
What a terrible thing if a man or woman have their heart swell with generosity and make benevolence the sole rule of their conduct. What a terrible world that would be, huh? I mean, this is madness on a scale, but yet I'm convinced this is the root of every single one of these movements we're seeing unfold today. Every single thing that's going on right now is based upon Immanuel Kant and his madness.
Yeah, well, and the philosophy serves the technocratic agenda.
Yes,
you have to give up everything that you have for the greater good of the panopticon that's going to imprison everybody, enslave everybody. Then we'll all be equal. We'll all be equal. Well, we won't all be equal. But, like Orwell said,
some are more equal than others.
Except some of us are more equal than others.
Exactly. Now, with that as background, back to this Julian guy.
So since we're not killing people in the developing world, we don't see ourselves as being responsible. Secondly, we care much more about our own. Americans value an American life 2,000 times more than a non-American life. And lastly, our psychology is just not set up for this kind of problem. We can empathise with single individuals, but the more people we're expected to empathise with, the less we give. We're incapable, insensitive to huge numbers. Another problem that we're not fit to solve is climate change. Now, historically, the problem that climate change represents is what's called the tragedy of the commons. Human communities had a small resource that they had to constrain their consumption of, like a pasture land. And how did they do that? Well, they knew each other. They trusted each other. They could see the difference that they made. And if someone was a free rider, you could detect them and punish them. But that's not the kind of tragedy of the commons that environmental problems today represent. These are caused by citizens with millions of people, anonymous to each other, with little reason to trust each other, and the contributions each of those people make is negligible. The prohibition against harming doesn't kick in. So we don't see that we're responsible. Still worse, the effects are uncertain, they're in the distant future, and we're programmed to think about the near future, and they'll affect people in Southeast Asia and Africa. We're simply not set up to deal with these sorts of problems. Also, they would require sacrifices. We're not fit to make those sorts of sacrifices. After the Kyoto Protocol, Americans were surveyed. 50% of them would give $50 a month to conform, but only 10% of them would give $100 a month.
But we owe it to them. We owe it to them because past injustices dictate. We've got all this money over here, so we got to pay all these other countries to help them. Anyway, getting down to the punchline of all of this.
Social policy, legal reform, political reform, these are all used to address these problems. But I want to ask now, could we change those very dispositions that we have? We've been enormously effective at changing other animals. The greatest human genetic experiment, the breeding of dogs, shows the power.
Yeah, you caught that, didn't you?
To change the disposition of animals. All those 300 different breeds are due to just genetic selection. But today, science is even more powerful. It can make a rabbit glow in the dark and a human embryo glow by transferring genes from a jellyfish. These are not moral enhancements, but they demonstrate the awesome power of science. Humans have looked at enhancing themselves and tried to improve their cognitive and physical abilities, with some success. Caffeine, second largest export in the world, it's a cognitive enhancer. Today, human sport is dominated by doping and performance enhancement. Could we not only improve our cognitive abilities and our physical abilities, could we improve our moral capacities? This is a frightening prospect to many people. Many will remember the aversion therapy experiments of the 50s and 60s, psychosurgery, but it needn't be that way. Israeli psychologists studied courtroom decisions, and they found that the leniency of the judge's decision dropped off markedly the longer it was since the judge last time ate. Clearly, we could improve this by delivering glucose in a more regulated way.
Okay.
A simple moral enhancement.
Controlling behavior by controlling food. Did you hear what he said there at the end of that?
Yeah, that's Pavlov's dogs.
Yes.
Sit up and beg.
Controlling glucose in a more regulated way. That means controlling the food supply. That's what he's advocating here. He also exposes various possibilities that can be used to obtain the desired outcomes.
Sleep deprivation reduces empathy, as do many extraneous factors, such as the dirtiness of a desk. This is one of the wackier proposals to deal with Adolf Hitler, was to put estrogen in his food and make him more like his docile sister. In fact, this is a crude form of moral enhancement today. Prisoners, paedophiles are offered hormonal castration, administration of estrogens to reduce their sex drive. Many of the drugs that we take today affect our moral behaviour in mixed ways. A very common drug is the antidepressant Prozac or citalopram. It raises serotonin in the brain. This makes people less aggressive, more cooperative, more prepared to engage in fair bargaining. It's not a straightforward moral enhancer, but it has some moral effects. It shows, unsurprisingly, that drugs can affect the way we choose. Another much-discussed drug is substance is oxytocin, a neurohormone released by sex, breastfeeding, and the oral contraceptive pill. Oxytocin makes people more trusting, more trustworthy, more prepared to cooperate, but only within their group. It reduces cooperation with out-group members. It's being trialled in couples therapy for dysfunctional couples unable to communicate with each other, to augment communication. In Oxford, Sylvia Turbeck, one of my DPhil students, showed that propranolol reduces implicit racial bias. A very common moral enhancer that's given to children all around the world is Ritalin. Poor impulse control or ability to delay gratification is bad for your academic performance, bad for your ability to make friends, bad for your economic success, and highly likely to end you up in jail. Ritalin reduces aggressive violent behaviour in children, but also in adults. A recent Swedish study showed a 30% reduction in men and 40% in women of people with attention deficit disorder by taking Ritalin. This is a very simple form of moral enhancement. Magnetic stimulation can affect people's behaviour. In one study, the right temporoparietal junction was stimulated. It caused people to judge less harshly attempts to harm that were unsuccessful. That's not a moral outcome, morally desirable outcome, but it is a relevant outcome. What should we aim for? This is obviously one of the great questions. What is a moral enhancement? Here are some basic thoughts common to all moralities. I've mentioned reduction of violence and improvement of impulse control. Not only does Ritalin, anticonvulsants do this, but neurofeedback. It's being used in people with antisocial personality disorders to reduce violence. All forms of morality require some level of altruism and self-sacrifice. There's evidence that there is a biological basis to differences in this. The COMT gene comes in two variants. One variant is associated with twice as much altruism as the other. We may well be able to increase people's altruism.
What do you think so far of that? I got one more clip of this guy, but I just find the fact that they're even discussing behavior. I mean, they're wanting to make people slaves. And I would be interested to know how many grant funds, and what foundations are funding a lot of this research that's going into these studies of these various...
I bet Rockefeller is right in there.
I have no doubt. but many others.
It's almost like I am wondering, did these people not read any of the history of Germany? Did they not read our early 20th century? They're talking about ethics and morality. They have to be aware of the eugenics movement.
Well, they're all in. They're all in with the eugenics.
Maybe they think that was moral. I don't know.
Yes,
but it makes me crazy, actually, that they are
there's a drug for that.
Allowing them to discuss these things as if they are a legitimate discussion for young minds.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, molding the minds. Finally, of course, in true keeping, there is the transhuman and, as you already mentioned, the eugenics component.
The famous physicist Stephen Hawking conducted a poll asking people, what do you think the main risks to humanity are? And eventually he was asked, what do you think the answer to that is? And he said climate change, nuclear war, biological terrorism, infectious disease. And he said the next century is critical. And maybe, in order to survive the next century, we have to genetically engineer ourselves to make ourselves wiser and less aggressive. Genetic engineering is only one form of biological intervention. The drugs that we use, the technologies that we develop, could also be used not just to improve our cognitive and physical abilities, but the very moral capacities that create the enormous problems that we've invented for ourselves this century.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, had I known, I would never have had children. Or a son. I just have a son, but this is so morally repugnant to me, so inhuman.
It's sick.
These people are inhuman. They're psychopaths. They have no concept of what it is to be human.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. And I agree. Any decent person would be repulsed by what you're hearing in that clip. And the kind of, it's just, it leaves you almost speechless. These people, they're the ones that are mentally deficient. And if anybody needs a morality pill, if there were such a thing, these are the people that need it. The people that are trying to push
human characteristics.
What is it about these people and the way they think that make them want to control other people, that make them want to lord over other people, impose their will on everybody else? That is the mental illness. So turning it around on us, people who are freedom-minded, who just want to be left alone to live our lives, raise our children, and enjoy life.
That's a sin in their world.
Exactly. I'll tell you what, we got a call on the line. Let's go to John in Tennessee. Hello, John. You're on the air.
Hello, Darren. Hey, Vicky. I'm listening to this, and I'm going, and my brain is falling out. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Here's what I'm hearing, Darren. Here's what I'm hearing. It's like they have, I remember when they were excited because they were mapping the human genome. Then they completed it years ahead of time, if you remember that. They've been working on MK Ultra for mind control for probably 80 or 90 years. Darren, Vicky, I think they've done it. I really do. And the problem that they have with people that have some sense of morality or a moral compass is that when they look at you and I, and they look at Vicky, and they look at the others that just want to treat people like they want to be treated and be left alone, it brings their own circumstance into view, and they can't stand it, which is why they can come out with something with spraying the atmosphere to distribute a fun vax to eliminate fundamental religious thoughts, morality, and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm seeing here, he keeps talking about drugs. He's talking about, it's just blowing my mind. It's like literally, it's the 21st century, MK Ultra, and I've asked in the past if MK Ultra could be a reference to Mein Kampf, for my struggle, the ultra struggle, to the point where this is where we're headed. I mean, we're there right now anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They have pulled out all the stops. And there's something, with this Great Reset, I know that both of you have thought about it, but that Great Reset is an economic reset. It's basically this pandemic, the false pandemic, has caused a worldwide redistribution of wealth, making everyone poor, except for the wealthy, except for the controllers.
Yeah.
Someone's got to be the decider. Someone has to take control, so they're bringing everyone down, literally tearing it apart.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, I think you are.
The global economic system is designed to be run by corporations because they are the money machines. They are the creators of wealth and value. And what they've done with all these trade agreements is to separate our economy from our political system. And the idea is really that our politicians really are just serving a ceremonial role at this point, for the most part. You see that our government is totally non-functional. The Department of Justice, what Department of Justice? They have actually reorganized, redesigned the organization of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're hearing with all of this medical stuff is the corporate efficiency, the thinking of corporate efficiency in the management of the economy. They need to get everybody marching in lockstep.
Yep. And isn't it ironic that the lockstep, that the Rockefeller document, which laid out the scenario that we're living today, was called lockstep. Anyway, go ahead, John. Sorry.
Oh, what we've got to understand, who was it? One of the occult leaders said we have to learn to think backwards and speak backwards. So, Vicky, you're correct. The Department of Defense is actually the Department of Offense. The Department of Justice is actually the Department of Injustice. They flipped it all on its ear. We're literally living in 1984 to the point where, Vicky, I'm going to say something that you may or may not agree with, and Darren might not, but I'm sure that there's others that do. I don't believe that I do believe that there's basically two species that look alike. One is evil that has a different master, and one is not necessarily perfect, but they don't have evil intent. They're imperfect, but they don't have a desire to control. I think we're living in a species war right now.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't disagree with. The only area that I would disagree with you on is that I think that the people that we're calling the different species, I think they have brain defects. I think they were born with a brain defect.
Yeah.
Whatever it is,
something wrong upstairs
that makes the person human, they are missing that thing. Whatever
well,
it is.
What's interesting, what's ironic about this whole thing is that they're talking about empathy. They're talking about how some people are missing this, whatever it is that it takes to give them empathy and have feeling for other people. And there's some people that are psychopaths, and they fail to see that, million-ton elephant in the room is that they're talking about themselves.
Uh-huh. Well, you can talk about things academically without any feeling for the subject matter, which is what they're doing.
Yeah.
They have no feeling for the subject matter, which is human moral and ethical values.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. They are a different species. But I think it's a brain defect.
They want you to give everything that you have away, except for what they have. They think they ought to be able to keep. I mean, they're telling you to do something that they in no way would do, and yet even if you, for some strange reason, you figure that this is your fault, and in some way you can give back out of love, they don't even want you to have the self-satisfaction of being loving towards someone else.
No, you owe it to them.
They want to demand it.
Yeah, you owe it to them.
Yeah, they want to demand it.
It's just like the Black Lives Matter people coming out and demanding white people give up their houses to them. In fact, I got... Okay, let me just go down here and play this real quick. This is a recent... in fact, this is just this past week in Seattle. You have to pardon the music underneath because it's annoying that they added music to it. But listen carefully to what these people are chanting. Why don't you give us your homes? Did you hear that?
Do you know that you are living in a historically black neighborhood right now? Do you know that? Do you know that before you don't let us in here, this is all black people? Do you know that?
Okay, so it's hard to hear, but he said, "Why don't you give us your homes?" Do you know? And then some other guy, black guy, says, "Do you know that before y'all white ass came here, this was all black people?" I think he has his history a little mixed up because I thought Indians were here first, but hey, but anyway,
Chinese people were here before them. So
yeah, the point is that this whole thing. I mean, give us your homes, give us. You owe us. This is the philosophy of Immanuel Kant, permeating everything that's happening today. You don't deserve any. If you do anything for anybody, well, you owed it to them. So don't get all puffed up. Don't think that you deserve any praise or applause. You owed it, and you owe more, and nothing you ever do for them could be enough. So if you do give up your house, hey, you don't deserve any praise for that. I mean, this is absolute madness. Absolute madness.
It's the end of humanity. The whole engineered society, the design of society, is the end of humanity.
Yeah.
It's the end of anything human. So
yeah, exactly.
Everybody is an object. Every rule is it's designed to keep the system functioning, to make the system function.
I'm going to move on here because clock's getting away from us as usual. A closely related topic, and we've kind of been talking around it a little bit, Vicky. We got the subject of the Business Roundtable. There was a discussion about the Business Roundtable. Now, giving a little background, what is the Business Roundtable? They're kind of a lobbying group, aren't they? I mean,
yes, for their corporate leaders that
the corporate CEOs
discuss issues, and they pick issues to lobby Congress for.
Yeah, they're corporate CEOs, so they're not just like board members. I mean, they're the top of the corporations, and anyway, they've always held the shareholder as being the reason why corporations exist. They put out this purpose statement, and now they have changed their statements to reflect different values, shall we say.
Their statement 20 years ago was that corporations had an obligation
to the shareholder
to maximize shareholder value.
Which for better for worse, that's what you would expect in today's world. But now they have come out with...
in today's world, but not in...
Historically, yes.
The history. Corporations started out as organizations, people that organized for a purpose that was of a benefit
to the common good.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
But
it's
the
like
real
the canal
common good
system here in Idaho. We're at the northern edge of the Great Basin Desert. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of water because of the Snake River, but the surface territory is desert. Okay, so these guys got together, they formed a corporation, and they built a canal system so that there could be farming and livestock, and they built a town basically on that because of the canal system. And all through Idaho there are canal systems for the farming. Mm-hmm. And the corporation was for that purpose. Yeah. It was to benefit everybody, themselves, but also everybody else.
And my understanding is that corporations weren't supposed to be a lifetime thing that went on forever and ever and ever. I mean, they had a limited charter in the early days, as my understanding. Right. And so they had to, once that purpose, in order to renew, they would have to justify that renewal, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So, yes, they should have a real purpose that benefits humanity, benefits society. And I laughed at the common purpose or common good because these are terms the enemy has hijacked. We should be looking out for, the common good in the sense that it's a general benefit to the general population, but not at the expense of individual liberties, individual freedoms. And there is where the rub is, because the other side likes to do this balancing game where it's either or. Either you're for the common good or you're for individual rights. Individual rights are against the common good. And I argue that the opposite is true. In order to have common good, real common good, you have to have individual liberties. And that is something that, the problem is, Vicky, I think our side needs to take back the narrative. We've allowed the other side to define these terms for too long. Because the corporations, the reason why they did that, the maximizing shareholder values, is because we were just entering into the global world. And so Congress wanted to make sure that the American corporations dominated, because a corporation is an economic war machine. Okay, so they just turned them loose. Go maximize shareholder value, meaning get as big and wealthy as you possibly can, based on the delusional idea that an American corporation had a loyalty to America. Well, that was simply delusional. Mm-hmm. If they are making money in a global market, making billions, hundreds of billions in China and Europe or wherever, they're no longer an American corporation. They are in it for themselves. They are maximizing shareholder value. So there's a movement afoot, thanks to the Davos people, that they are trying to change it to, instead of maximizing shareholder value, you maximize stakeholder value. But in either case, it doesn't make any difference, because you and I aren't included, Darren. We're not shareholders and we're not stakeholders. So, to a certain extent,
what it is that our governments and corporations are recognizing this, of course, that they have all the money, they have all the power.
Some people might be shareholders. You have a certain amount of stuff in your retirement plans.
I don't care. If you've got 1,000 shares, you've got nothing.
Yeah,
okay?
Exactly.
So they don't count.
Yeah. Well, the point is that they are trying. I believe, just based upon what I've seen so far, this is a marketing campaign.
Yes.
We know they're not going to return things the way they were, where corporations serve the general well-being of the public. We know that the role of corporations in this New World Order has increased to a governance level.
Yes, because they separated the economy. Okay, remember, the design is separate the economy. Who has the power? It's the corporations that have the power.
Mm-hmm.
Because the idea is to collapse nation states, because in the global world, we don't need those nation states. Let's open borders, open everything, share everything. But the corporations are the leaders, and their stakeholders are the people like that philosopher, that present the marketing message to the public.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to play. I got a couple of clips from the conference. It's the Zoom discussion you found from the Aspen Institute. But first, I want to deviate real quickly and go to CNBC's Squawk Box, because Josh Bolton was on there, and they were asking him about this whole thing. So this is kind of a good backgrounder.
This morning, the Business Roundtable is looking back 1 year to when it first decided to call for enhanced corporate responsibility. You may remember last August 19th, the BRT overturned a more than 2-decade-old policy statement that said a corporation's main purpose was to serve shareholders. Now it includes the key constituencies of customers, employees, suppliers, and communities. Joining us right now to talk about this is Business Roundtable CEO Josh Bolton. Josh, welcome. Good to have you with us today.
Good morning, Becky.
So let's talk about what's happened, because there has been so much that's happened in the year since this, and especially because of this global pandemic. I think businesses have had to react in huge ways to kind of address that and make sure that they are reaching out to all their constituencies. Where do you think we've come over the course of the last year?
I think it's been an important year, and especially for the statement of corporate purpose that you just mentioned, because while a lot of people said to me, the economy's in terrible shape, so I guess the corporate purpose statement goes out the window. And my answer has been, on the contrary, what this crisis has meant is that the overwhelming majority of America's big companies are stepping up in a way that actually underscores the values in that corporate purpose statement. Because, like you said, this is a moment when the corporations who are able to do that need to support their customers, their employees, their suppliers, and the communities in which they operate, as well as their shareholders.
Hey, Josh, I've been thinking about it, and I know you have some very specific examples of things where companies have really stepped up to reach out to their community, maybe to their employees. I can think of many of them from the ones we've talked to, where they're paying their employees more, where they are giving back to the communities and making sure they help support them. Do you think it was because of this purpose statement, though, or do you think this is just something, to me, great companies have done this for a very long time?
Great companies have, and the corporate purpose statement is in many respects a reflection of the way that good CEOs lead their companies these days. But I think the statement has also made it front of mind for a lot of companies and made it comfortable for them to go to their shareholders and say, yeah, I'm going to be spending some extra money on my employees for the next 6 months. Or I'm going to be, foregoing, cutting off our electricity customers who can't pay right now. And you can say that much more comfortably to your shareholders now, I think, because of the values reflected in that statement, and the underlying point there is that no company can be successful in the long run if they don't support all of their stakeholders. So the statement is really an affirmation of support for the long-term shareholder over the short-term shareholder.
You know what? It dawns on me when they're talking about this. I believe that this is a transition from what has been the capitalist type of system of profit-making to a more socialist type of system.
Right. No parasite can survive if he kills the host. Okay, and this is not just because of COVID. This has been the design, the plan since probably even before the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
This has been the design, that corporations, who are the generators of economic activity and the means by which we live, the food, our transportation, everything. So this is the move towards flip the switch to where the corporations are taking over management.
Yes.
Because the whole technocratic system is a corporate-style management system.
Yeah, as a part of their shift in values, quote unquote, they say, we commit to, and this is the corporate statement we're talking about, we commit to delivering value to our customers. We will further the tradition of American companies leading the way in meeting or exceeding customer expectations, investing in our employees. This starts with compensating them fairly and providing important benefits. And, of course, what's fairly? Well, that's kind of up for debate, isn't it? It also includes supporting them through training and education that help develop new skills for a rapidly changing world. Why is it rapidly changing? Globalization, folks, caused by free trade agreements. And by the way, well, let me just finish this and I'll get to that. They say we foster diversity and inclusion, dignity, and respect. Third point, dealing fairly and ethically with our suppliers. We are dedicated to serving as good partners to our other companies, large and small, that help meet our missions. Fourth point, supporting the communities in which we work. We respect the people in our communities and protect the environment by embracing sustainable practices across our businesses. And final point, generating long-term value for shareholders who provide the capital that allows companies to invest, grow, and innovate. Okay, so, and so they say something about transparency. Okay, so anyway, what I was going to say, though, is that, all of this stuff is wrapped in benevolence. Benevolence.
Oh, yeah.
But yet, why are people needing corporate benefits? Why are they not prosperous? Why are people hurting? It's these free trade agreements. And who supported the free trade agreements but the Business Roundtable? You can go right to their Wikipedia page, and even Wikipedia says the Business Roundtable, nonprofit association based in Washington, D.C., whose members are chief executive officers of major U.S. companies, unlike the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, whose members are entire businesses, BRT members are exclusively CEOs. BRT promotes public policy favorable to business interests such as NAFTA, while also promoting broader public policy initiatives such as No Child Left Behind and opposing others such as the Trump administration's family separation policy. In 2019, BRT redefined its definition of the purpose of a corporation, putting the interests of employees, customers, suppliers, and communities on par with shareholders. So, and of course they have people like Jeff Bezos of Amazon, Tim Cook of Apple, Mary Barra of General Motors. I mean, they got something like, anyway, there were a lot of people that signed on to this corporate thing, this change in the corporate values, I guess, for lack of, the BRT values. But the point is that these are the troublemakers that caused all the pain and hardship to begin with.
That's right. And that's what I mean. It's all by design. The design was for a global economy where corporations could do business across borders with no hindrance, and so that because they are the economic generators. So as the Congress voted on these agreements, they were really transferring power, sovereign power, to the international system. So at this point, we almost don't have we don't have a constitutional government for sure. Mm-hmm. We have the facade. And so now the switch is, the great reset is for corporations to step up to take the role that has been assigned to them as the managers of resources and wealth generation.
Yeah.
Or economic generation.
Now, you found this session with the Business Roundtable CEO Josh Bolten, who you just heard just a moment ago in that CNBC clip we just played. listening to this program, by the way, this Aspen Institute program, what jumped out at me is how many of these large corporations went along with the communist Black Lives Matter terrorism.
They're all doing it. I had to change my virus system because McAfee, I went to McAfee's website and it says we support Black Lives Matter. So I said, well, that leaves me out.
Yeah.
And what really ticked me off was that I had just paid for the subscription.
Well, and thank God that you did abandon them, because they were the reason why you were cutting out every few seconds. I have dealt with that problem on this show numerous times for a long time, where your Skype would cut out. Turns out as soon as you got rid of McAfee, all the problem just kind of went away. You know what? That's really interesting. I didn't make that connection, but you're right. Yeah, it has gone away. Yeah. So it's much better now. So, aside from being aside from the fact that they suck as individuals, they also suck as programmers. Anyway.
Unless they're doing it on purpose. I mean, that's... Well,
I think it just bogs
what I have on my
down.
hard drive to theirs, mirroring my hard drive so they know what I'm up to.
Well, I think it just bogs down the system. Like so many of these, I don't even run antivirus anymore because it's just as long as you're careful and don't open attachments and suspicious links and stuff, you really don't need it. Anyway, and Windows has its own native thing anyway now, but anyway. This is the Business Roundtable from the Aspen Institute.
I'm aware that the BRT, in essence, it's really about policy formation more than kind of the practice of individual companies. But the public, I think, naturally focuses more on business decision-making and doesn't necessarily think about the BRT's role in policy formation. So how do you, I guess I have two questions. One is, what are the priorities on the policy front, if you can give us some, and kind of how have they been influenced by the work of kind of rewriting the purpose statement, if at all? And then kind of how do you manage both? Like, what's your real leverage point as an organization? Is it on policy or is it influencing practice among companies in some way, shape, or form? So kind of priorities on the policy front and kind of what levers do you have as an organization to move practice as well?
I'll take the questions in reverse and say that the levers are our advocacy voice and our practice. I think they reinforce each other. That when, as an organization, we as the Business Roundtable can and have advocated for something like masks should be required in indoor spaces, and retailers should all, that government regulation should require people to wear those masks. And so we've advocated that as a matter of public policy, but we also happen to have in our membership Walmart and Target and CVS. And when they implement that, then it becomes much more of the norm and more comfortable for government to go along. So
unfortunately, we're running out of time. He's just laid out, though, how they are implementing the plan, how they're using their influence to be able to. This gives rise again to the term governance, Vicky.
Yeah,
they are imposing the will of the controllers on the population, not only by lobbying and pushing for public policy, but also by using the big corporations to go ahead and do this. Now, he goes on to talk about how when this whole George Floyd thing came into being, they ended up, deciding to seize upon that and use that as an opportunity to enact change. What he called it racial equality. We know this is not really about racial equality at all. But that really goes in line with everything that I've been talking about with why are these all, how is it that all these corporations, like the flip of a switch, are just all, hey, we're all in with Black Lives Matter. Oh, we're all in favor of this.
Yeah.
It's because of groups like
amazing? This. By the way, those Aspen Institute programs, the Security Forum. I really recommend that you go listen to them all, because one of the things that I heard was Mark Warner, Senator Mark Warner. He's on the intelligence community. He was a corporate executive for the telecommunications industry, but he is proposing that we have coalitions of governments and corporations to basically compete with China. So he's proposing the communist Chinese model of state capitalism.
Public-private partnership. Yeah, they have tyranny over there, so we got to have tyranny over here to compete with their tyranny.
Yeah, and if you partner up government and corporations, you have tyranny. As a matter of fact, that's why we have the tyranny that we have.
Yeah.
Our government has been transferring authority to the international system, to corporations through deregulation, all the while clamping down on people, to regulating people. And it seems to me that the new purpose of government will be as the human resource manager. And we are the human resources.
Yeah.
So.
Yep, there it is. Well, unfortunately, we ran out of time, and I'm certainly not done, but we got to go. Thank you for being with us, and thank you as always, Vicky. Appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
We'll do it all again next week, and hopefully we can get into this Australia stuff, because it's very draconian what's happening over there, and we're going to get into all the ID stuff as well. So tune in next week. Thank you, everyone, and join us back here. Tell a friend, and we'll talk to you then. Bye-bye.